Like many other African and third world countries, Nigeria woke up to the rude shock of the suspension of foreign aid by the newly elected President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, as he decided to suspend $7.6 billion given to African countries. At first glance, it appears like the lashing out of an angry bull in a bullfight. Is there a rationale behind this? Hello! On True News, the impacts and ramifications of the sudden decisions by the Trump administration is looked into. The decision by the U.S. to suspend foreign aid to Africa and other third world countries is a devastating blow to the most vulnerable populations. This move, orchestrated by President Donald Trump, has sparked much controversy, with clashing arguments and outrage about the morality or rationality of the action. What was Trump thinking? Many wonder. The suspension of the U.S. foreign aid globally, except for Israel and Egypt, has raised alarms about its potential impact on African countries heavily reliant on humanitarian assistance. The suspension means the stoppage of 35 million people affected by the crisis across Africa will be affected. Countries like South Sudan, with over 9 million citizens in the need of humanitarian aid, DR Congo, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Angola, amongst many other countries that rely on the United States aid, are put in limbo due to this latest development. In the heart of West Africa, a silent tragedy unfolds with a foreboding on the lives of millions. The surge of violence across Niger Republic, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria has cast a long shadow over the innocent, especially children. A world where over 34 million children find themselves out of school, their dreams slipping away as the days go by. Nigeria, as a country rich in culture and potential, bears the heaviest burden, with more than 18.5 million children lacking the chance to learn and grow. This heartbreaking reality stems from a web of corruption, poverty, and violence woven tightly by a lack of governmental care. Another crisis looms over the vast African landscape: food insecurity. The specter of hunger haunts the lives of over 163 million people across the continent, each statistic representing a soul struggling to survive. Ethiopia stands at the forefront of this crisis, where more than 1 million people face the nagging pangs of hunger daily. One group within Africa that is currently on edge and is going to be affected by the Trump foreign aid ban is the people living with HIV. Drugs and medication are mostly expensive but indispensable. South Africa has the largest number of HIV patients, 8 million, followed by Mozambique, 2.4 million, Nigeria, 1.7 million, Uganda, 1.5 million, and Zambia, 1.3 million people, amongst others. HIV patients across Africa have lived on aid subsidies from the United States to survive and cater for their drugs, as most countries across Africa have not invested in research and the pharmaceutical industry to find alternatives for imported HIV drugs, leaving many at the mercy of global aid donors. Most African countries are already struggling with poverty, insecurity, terrorism, and a bad economy. The latest Trump aid ban will put more pressure on the already struggling continent. Nigeria, in particular, has been a significant beneficiary of the U.S. foreign assistance, receiving over $1 billion in humanitarian aid in 2023. This aid has been instrumental in supporting critical healthcare programs, educational initiatives, and infrastructural development. By suspending this aid, the U.S. is essentially abandoning millions of Nigerians who rely on these programs for survival. The consequences of this decision will be far-reaching and catastrophic. Without U.S. aid, Nigeria's already overwhelmed healthcare system may suffer untold problems, leaving millions without access to life-saving treatment. Educational initiatives could grind to a halt, condemning future generations to a life of poverty and ignorance. Infrastructure development would possibly stall, exacerbating existing challenges in transportation, energy, and water supply. Is this a rude awakening for recipient nations that is needed to galvanize them into self-sustenance? President Trump's abrupt and seemingly uncharitable strike against humanitarian aid from the United States may have come from a place of self-preservation for the country that has bore the burden of supporting many third world countries for so long. The situation could be construed as a well-intentioned measure to get the nations dependent on these aid facilities to begin looking inward for solutions to their problems. Conversations about what the receiving nations have been doing with their material and human resources have been generated among commentators. It is indeed a valid interrogation. For too long, African and other third world countries have gone cap in hand to Western nations for sustenance and developmental initiatives, which ordinarily these begging nations should be able to do for themselves, based on the strength of the natural endowments they possess. What Trump is simply saying to the world is that it is time for every nation to apply its God-given resources for its people's welfare, protection, and human development. Nigeria and other African countries must take responsibility for their own development, diversifying their economies and reducing their reliance on foreign aid. Perhaps any further assistance to these countries would be more meaningful as emergency provisions from the international community in the intervening period, while advocating for self-reliant systems that do not need foreign aid as much. In interrogating the rationality behind Trump's decision, he is reported to have said that one of the frontline facilities for U.S. foreign aid, the U.S.A, is rife with corruption, terming it a criminal organization. There have been allegations that only 10% of the aid given out trickled down to the populations or communities targeted. Perhaps President Trump is onto something. Investigations will reveal the true nature of these giveaways. There are opinions in some quarters that this decision by Trump is a strategic blunder, one that portrays President Trump as a bull in a china shop, and on the track towards breaking the US Big Brother position in the global sphere. The ban on foreign aid is not just a humanitarian issue, it's also interpreted as a strategic blunder. By abandoning Nigeria and other African countries, the US could be creating a power vacuum that China and other rival nations will eagerly fill. This could have long-term consequences for US interests in the region, undermining its influence and compromising its national security.